So I would like to ask Matthias Schmidt to hold his presentation about the natal dispersal of imperial eagles in the Central European population.
So, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much for the possibility to share some results of a fruitful cooperation of several peoples and organizations in the Pannonian region in Central Europe. The title of my speech is The Natal Dispersal of Eastern Imperial Eagles and Preliminary Results for the Central European Population. Preliminary results is because we want to add some more data from birds which are available but not integrated by now. So just keep that in mind. But in general, I would expect that it's not a big change in the results. As I said, it's a joint project with a lot of people. There are the names of my co-authors of this study. And I want to show you a short overview about which population we are talking. It's the population in Central Europe, which also Martin and Johannes also mentioned before. So it's here in the most western distribution edge. It's a resident population, and there was this historical sharp decline in the last centuries, and now the recovering in the last decades. And I think this almost 500 breeding pairs are all, when I think on Martin's presentations, are not correct anymore. So there are more than 500 breeding pairs already in the region. And we already heard also about the reasons of the increase. And not at last, it is that there are conservation programs in all these countries which are in this region. So there have also in Hungary, Slovakia, Austria, Czech Republic, Serbia, and Romania. In the past years, decades, there is established an international collaboration, a very good one, I think, where we have a experience exchange and data exchange in the several projects. And in all countries, tagging has been part of at least one of these projects or in more projects. And additionally to this data of the NGOs, which were created in project of the NGOs, we also get some data of a private company. So the aim of this study is to get some information of the start and the duration of dispersal, the analysis of the natal dispersal movement patterns, and also to identify the utility distribution and hotspots for dispersing imperial eagles. So short look on the data sources we have access on. Altogether, we have data of 143 tagged imperial eagle. As I said before, there will probably the number rise as there are some other birds still available and has to be integrated. The time span which is covered with this data lasts back until 2003, so it's from 2003 to 2023, and altogether there are more than 15 million data points collected. That means more than 90,000 tracking days, and the data management for such a huge amount of data and different sources of data is quite complicated, and we choose to put it in the move bank, which makes it much more easier to handle this huge amount of data and to harmonize it as well. Because when we're thinking about this huge time span, we're collecting the data, for sure the technology of GPS transmitter has evolved a lot, and there is really a big difference to the text in the beginning to the text in the end. We used Argos GPS transmitters, GPS, GSM, UHF transmitter, GPS, GSM transmitter, solar powered, battery powered, and also different attaching methods were used, which also affect the data availability. So backpack harness and leg loop harness, you see here the different generations. For example, this is an Argos transmitter, and here some on Aquila or Ecotone or Ornitella, different sizes. The sizes goes down. And just as an example, this is the newest generation where we can gather, when good condition, almost every second a point, compared to tags in the past where we can where you only have a few points per day. So we have animals which sending us data 3 or 5 points per day, and other animals were sending us 5,000 or more points per day. So there's a high variation of the data quality and the amount. And for sure, also, this is not only the amount, it's also the quality of the data itself, means location accuracy and the errors. So this was one of the first things to solve. And for the defining of the life stages or the start of the dispersal, we used the approach that we say the chicks became then independent from the adults when they left the natal territory for more than 10 days without coming back in the natal territories. For sure, we do not know the size of the natal territory, so we just use an artificial buffer of 5 kilometers. But it shows that it makes not so much difference if it's 4 or 3 or 5 kilometers, because normally when they leave for so a long time span, then they come not back anymore or settle somewhere else. Furthermore, we designed very, just on the table more or less, the start and the end of the breeding season and the non-breeding season. We used here the scheme Martin Horvath developed for the Imperial Eagle with the main life stages. And for sure, we are in a resident population, so we use this string where we have always the non-breeding and the breeding season per year. And the most challenging thing for the defining the end of the dispersal, or is the defining of the end of the dispersal, because there's for sure a little bit of variation and it's difficult to do it automatically. So we did it by expert opinion, just checking the data according to the movement pattern. And when we see that the bird starts to become territorial, we say the dispersal has ended. Also, just a few words to the analysis of the movement pattern, which parameter we use. As I said before, the data is quite heterogeneous, so the data quality, and we cannot use just a very sensitive or special method. So we need a value which is suitable for all these different technologies, and we choose this daily travel range, which Steining and Hunter used in 2013. It is a value for activity and range, and it's good for very robust to data with a high variation. I will just explain what it is. You have on the right side the track of a bird, or just a part of a track. You see quite a lot of lines, and we singled out 1 day, and this is the movement of 1 day, and the daily travel range is the longest side of the rectangle around all points of 1 day. So this is our measure for the daily travel range for the daily activity. The second value we used is the squared displacement. It's a value which is provided by the by the an R package. I think it's the AD Habitat package, and it's the squared distance between the first location, means the nesting site, and is an indicator for displacement, which is very helpful when we want to see if the bird becomes territorial and it's not moving much around. So these are the main two variables we use for the analysis of the movement patterns. And furthermore, we wanted to identify hotspots, and the spatial use of Central Europe from the eagles during the dispersal. We use also for the utilization distribution, we use a dynamic Brownian bridge model, which is also very good for data with high variation over time, because it makes a big difference if there are just seconds between two locations or several hours. And because of our data set, we needed such a method. We choose a setting, a raster size of 1000 meter. The window size and the margin size is 11 and 5 for those people who are a little bit into that. But the time step we have to adapt depending on the technology of the transmitter. And one more thing we make, if there is gaps of more than 8 hours, we cut the track and put it then later again together. We calculated this UD on an individual level. So because it's quite a, the computer processes such calculations very long, but we make it on an individual level. And in the end, we put the UD for all individuals together and with a weighted mean by the days of the dispersal. And then we get a map for the whole population. This is just an example how a UD can look out. You have here the red dots are the highest, the areas with the highest probability, and the bluer it goes, that's the lesser probabilities or density. Good. Here's just an overview of where the location is of the birds which were tagged in the period. You see this is more or less the Pannonian region. You see that the most birds were tagged in the core areas of the Imperial Eagle in Eastern Hungary, but the other one on the western part of the population and the border region of Austria, Slovakia, Czechia, and Hungary, and also a few were tagged in Serbia down there. So it's for sure there are some gaps to the breeding distribution, but in general it's a good fit. And when we look at the result now, there you can see a short history about the movements of the birds from the beginning, from 2003 to now. So the upper right, you can see the date, very small, unfortunately, but you can just see how the movement is. In the beginning, just a few birds. Then there was a gap between 2007 and 2011. And with 2011, the activity of tagging starts quite fast. And you see here the movement of all the birds in the fast speed. Good. And when we put this together, then is this the map of all the birds we have tagged or were tagged in the past 20 years. You can clearly see there are some tracks which are going really far away to the Sahel, even to Western France and to the east and to the south. But the main or the most movement have been in Central Europe. But for sure, as always, with this huge amount of data, and it's quite irritating. You do not really see anything anymore. It's just lines over lines over lines. But we will try, or I will try to sort this out. So now to the result. The first goal of the study was to find out when start dispersal and how long lasted. We, as I described already, how we calculated, and the result is that the median date for the start of the dispersal is the 25th of September, but there is a high variation. We also had a bird already on the 6th August which left the natal territory and didn't come back, and the maximum date is late as the 27th of December. So this is, yeah, it's for sure just describing the issue, but it's very important for the conservation stuff, especially when we think on protecting nest sites in the frame of use of wind farms and so on, to know how long we have to protect them until the chicks are really left or the juveniles left the natal territory. The other question was the duration of the dispersal. As I said before, we decided to make it one by one to check each bird and say that from this point now it seems that it's territorial. And also here is quite a huge variation and quite surprising that the duration is very short, in my opinion. So the minimum duration of the dispersal was 1.4 years. That means that the bird starts already to becoming territorial in his third calendar year, but the average is 2.4 years more or less, but single birds also it takes 4.5 years. And this results in the age classes when we look here of when the birds becoming territorial. There is with the third calendar year quite a lot of already, and then 4, 5, and 6, just a few. We are not sure, or at least me, I'm not sure about this, if it was in the past the same. It seems that the birds start becoming territorial earlier and earlier. This is an example of how we make this analysis of the movement patterns, which also help us then to decide if a bird is territorial. This is a bird from Austria, Dogoda, from the national park and the Floodplain National Park. And you can see here the black line is this displacement from the natal site. And the other one is this daily travel range in kilometers. per season. Here are the years. And you see this was the fledging period and then started dispersal. And there were daily travel ranges up to 200 kilometers. The bird was always quite active over the whole next year. And in the third year, in the beginning of the breeding season, he became the first time territorial. He built a nest in Czechia, and we could see that the displacement was almost stable. Activity was very low. It's a female, but it was not really, probably didn't start to breed, but at least it has a nest. And for us at this point, it became territorial. The brood was unsuccessful. Afterward, it starts getting more and more active again. And it's not seen here, but in this year, it breed successful again. This is the map of the bird. And just to see how it, with the different colors, travel quite a lot around until it get settled in Czechia. And here's another bird, Pani, which was tagged in 2011 and is still alive. And you can see, you cannot really read, but probably you can see the bars, the different heights, that it's a lot of activity in its first 4 living years or 5 living years, and then it became territorial. And from this on, there's only very, very low activity, and the bird is still breeding. 1 minute left. Okay, sorry, okay, I have to hurry up. There's also one thing, as we plot the daily travel range per age class. You see that the younger the birds are, the more activities, and the older the birds gets, there's a clear decrease. This is the same, more or less, plotted in a different way. And the same is also for the life stages, where it's more or less the same result. During the breeding season, we have much more activity than in the wintering season. And you see it more clear, and the older the birds get, the lower is the activity. And the last thing is this utility distribution, which I mentioned before. Here you can see a part of the distribution of all the tracks. Because of calculation reasons, we removed this track to Africa, and we calculated this as the UD for all these birds. The red color, as I said, is the most density areas. And you can see here the square kilometer which we are used altogether, and the core areas. And what you can see clearly here is a separation between the two subpopulation, I would say, between Eastern Hungary and this Western Hungary, Austrian, Slovakia, Czechian complex. And here, for example, you can see the western part, and it's quite obvious for the people who know the area that this is the main breeding area of the eagles, so it is quite a huge overlapping. And when we look to the eastern part of the population, it's almost similar. So then I will come to my conclusions, or to our conclusions. There's a high variation in the start and the end of this dispersal, also in the variation in daily travel range. I forgot to say before, they can travel up to 500 kilometers per day, but for sure there are several days where they just stay 1 or 2 kilometers. There's an annual phenological pattern in the movement range, and this is decreasing per age. The dispersal flights covers large parts over Central Europe, and the highest density is within the breeding range and closest to the core area. And this is very important for us to identify these hotspots for the conservation, especially with wind farm developments become an uprising issue, as we see already in the presentation from Johannes from Austria, where we had at least only this year already 5 fatalities. And in addition to these core areas, we saw that there are single explorative flights far away from the breeding season, but there seems less connectivity to Southeastern Europe and no connectivity to the Macedonian population and the populations in the east. And for sure, a lot of people were involved, and a lot of organizations helped this over this whole period. Just a few mentioned here. And thank you very much, and sorry for taking too much time.